Good afternoon and welcome. The music you are about to listen to is that of the large jazz ensemble format, featuring music that found its roots in the big band era of early post-World War II America. Notice I said America because although born in the United States, its history is shared by both U.S. and Canada. Today's program features composers from both countries, inspiring their musicians to play and their audiences to inquire more. We'd like to start off our first number today by Hamilton trombonist Ian McDougall, who played in the great Canadian band the Boss Brass. It is a laid-back rock influenced number inspired by the keyboardist Doug Riley. Doug Riley was one of the Canadian contingents when I was growing up. He would be about 10 years my senior. He's since passed, but when I was growing up, he was very influential in my life because he very nicely incorporated rock-oriented influences with the jazz understanding of theory and approach. And so this tune was inspired by his music and is entitled Back Bacon Blues. attending McGill University in the 1970s, I was amazed by how cosmopolitan the city of Montreal was. In particular, the African population. Francophone language was the key to that mystery. The influences were to be found everywhere, including food, fashion, and yes, music. In my journey to understand the music of Cuba, the African connection was paramount. Cuba would embrace the 6/8 feel of the African clave and combined with the European classical structure, moved the music forward. Our composer, John Barry, cleverly works our next selection with the aforementioned 6/8 groove into a 3/4 Caribbean funk reggae groove, which is very evident, as you will hear in our performance of El Gato, the cat. 1, 2, 3. I don't usually take the time to recognize the achievement of this band in the middle of a concert, but I think this term is appropriate. Each term at Waterloo presents its own unique character. This year, winter term with its cold weather, reduced sunlight seems to additionally command extra academic weight on the student body. This often finds students sick and more tired than usual. Math students in particular tend to have extra classes scheduled on Monday nights at the same time as we rehearse. We as an ensemble felt the effects of all the aforementioned during the month of February. At this time, I would like to thank the ensemble behind me for their due diligence and willing to pull together. I just thought I would mention that during February, we rarely had more than half the band out, and it always tended to move around the band. So what I was saying there about the due diligence is very accurate to pull this off, because we have a couple of difficult tunes in this particular concert, and they're meeting all my expectations. The Count Basie Band of Kansas City is one of my favorite big bands and holds a cherished place in jazz music history. On January 17th, 2021, we lost an elder statesman in the jazz community, arranger Sammy Nestico. Like Count Basie, for whom he wrote regularly, had his own style, delivering excitement through his music and academic activities. Something you need to realize is that the great musicians in the jazz circuit have all done a certain amount of academic work. They're called in to do a residency for a month or a week, or they stay around in Europe because they have 2 weeks off and they stay around and some professor takes them into their door, and then they do classes that are just for fun around. And certainly Sammy Nestico is well established in that area, as well as his writing for the Basie Band and many other bands. In his early career, he was the lead composer and arranger for the Airmen of Note. And I don't know how many people know about the Armed Forces, but in Canada here, we have basically more concert band-oriented groups that play in our armed forces. But in the United States, there is a concert and classical and things, but there's a very heavy contingent of the jazz format. And Sammy was writing for one of the very best bands in the United States, the Airmen of Note. And I had the pleasure of working with the very best trombone player I've ever worked with in my life at the Stratford Festival for many years. His name is Jerry Johnson. He was a member of that Airman of Note. And by way of recognizing him here today, we'd like to dedicate that to his memory. We lost him a few years ago to cancer, as we did a bass player in the band as well within a very short time period. But this music lives on because those gentlemen, people like Sammy Nestico, made it happen. We'd now like to play you Sammy Nestico's Queen Bee, which, by the way, is the marker for those drummers in the crowd or wannabe drummers. When I went to school, I studied with Jerry Danovich. He was very much like our saxophone instructor here on campus. And Jerry was very high driving but fair. And we cut our teeth. I cut my teeth on learning how to play slow on this tune. I hope you'll enjoy it. Queen Bee. term, I throw in a challenging piece that pushes the band to a new benchmark. Our next selection is The One. Composed to honor New York City's Tito Puente, this arrangement borrows from the Cuban styles of cha-cha and sango. Written and composed by Goodwin for his Big Fat Band in 2003, we will now present Horn of Puente to honor El Rey, the King, Tito Puente. We actually have a small dance floor at the back if you'd like to, if you want to partake in the cha-cha. I'm not so sure you want to hang around for the song a little bit. wrap up our offering today, I would like to thank a few people on this concert. As always, I have concert notes, and I deviate from them every once in a while, but this whole section, bear with me, it's all being ad-lib because a lot of things changed in the last half hour. One person that never changes in my life here at the University of Waterloo, in particular at Waterloo University College, is Angelica Allen. Where are you hiding? Another point in regard to Angelica is that, oh, there she is! About my fourth year teaching here, Leonard Enns, who I respect really well in this community, he's a choir director, he's been a professor here for many years. He's, I guess he would be professor emeritus here, you know? And he once told me, this is who we are. And he got kind of emotional, and he then explained briefly how unique this place was. In like big schools, like the University of Toronto, that have a bigger music department than we do here, do not have the same soul as the smaller school has in many ways. And I've never forgotten it in all these years, and it stems from the Mennonite culture. This is who we are. And with that in mind, continuing on to, so Angelica, you are a prime example of this is who we are, for me. Thank you. The next person, or thing I'd like to mention, is our music chair, Professor Mark Vorian. Please, Mark, wait a minute. Since I'm polishing stones for a couple of minutes, during COVID, my concern wasn't for my lack of employment here, it was whether the course would be maintained so that we could survive when we came back into the classroom. We could remount, or we could lose this particular ensemble. And Mark was very supportive of that. I decided to go a little different route. I won't go into explain what the syllabus was, but I did a different route. And he was very supportive, and it worked out really well for us. That we actually grew, and we were going to have more students enroll in that online class because of the way that he and I developed it. So I can't say enough good things about Mark. Thank you, sir. Professor Bloom. This next gentleman I've known, God, it's got to be 35 years now, or better. And he's now presently the saxophone instructor here at Grebel, and has been committed to this band for all those years. He would come in on occasion, sit in with the band and share his talents. But more importantly, over the last 10 years, and he's become a really good mentor, not only to the saxophone players in the band, but literally everybody, because when he speaks, he gives a different point of view. I cannot say enough good things about Ernie Kawa. Stand up early. I'd also like to recognize a couple of groups here today. Can you maybe put your hands up? Introduction to Jazz. Do we have any students from the Introduction to Jazz program? There's three back there. Lovely. Well, thank you for coming out. You got a hold of me and let me know that there might be a few coming up. Don't hesitate for the meet and greet in a couple of minutes. talk to either band members or myself, or Professor Warren or Angelica, they'd be all happy to see you. We have another distinguished group here. We've never had this before. We have a scout group here that are from the Polish community. Can you show your hands? There we go. So this is for them. I still remember when I was in Cubs. And I remember, Akela, we'll do our best. Dub, 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 doop, doop, doop. And they're all staring at me saying, what is he talking about? They don't do it in Scouts, or at least they didn't do it in Scouts. But I was a Cub. I never made it to Scouts because music took over my life at age 13. But hang in there, guys, because it's a great thing I do. As I alluded to a moment ago, at the conclusion of the concert today, there will be light refreshments offered down the hall in the solarium. You'll get a chance to meet the players in the band, find out what I really like. And hopefully you'll take a moment for that. Our closing number is a hard-driving rock piece, shifting into a cool Miles Davis groove. The title of this piece is Andromeda. For some, they might know this ancient Greek mythology. Andromeda is a princess in Greek mythology who is rescued by from being sacrificed to a sea monster by her hero, soon-to-be husband, Perseus. Solos have been opened up to allow students to stretch out. We trust you will enjoy this high-energy packed closer, Andromeda.